Hello viewers, it's Ultimus553 here, and this is reviewed number 24, and today I'm going to be reviewing X-Men First Class, which is a prequel to the original X-Men trilogy.
So, X-Men First Class was actually an origin story from the X-Men comics. Basically, the origins of four of the original X-Men, that being Professor X, Magneto, Mystique, and Beast. And this movie was basically a younger version of those characters, and it was taken from the First Class comic book storyline. I know that because I researched it. It stars James McAvoy as a young Charles Xavier, or Professor X, who's known as Professor X in the X-Men trilogy of movies, and Michael Fassbender as a young Eric Lansher, or Magneto. And this does take place in the 1960s, I believe. Because it's a prequel to the original X-Men trilogy that had Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. So this is a younger version of Professor X and Magneto. Professor X is basically a, I guess, college professor in this movie who's just starting out in the movie. He basically befriends a girl named Raven Darkholme, later known as Mystique, and so he kind of takes her in, and she acts like his older sister or whatever, and she actually is a mutant. And so in this younger version of her, she can actually control her power of transformation, so that she isn't always blue. And and as she takes her in, she kind of like lives with there with them. And this is before Professor X became bald, because Charles Xavier wasn't bald yet in this movie, at least. But it's basically about that. So Mystique is actually played by Jennifer Lawrence in this movie, who also played Katniss in the Hunger Games franchise. And this was, I guess, it was an origin story because she could control when she transformed, which she couldn't in the later movies. And the movie itself was an origin story of the X-Men itself, like how the formation of the X-Men happened, and it was also an origin story of where Magneto came from. Basically, his origin story was at the very beginning of the movie. He's known as Eric Lansher, and he's a kid who can basically control metal. And of course, you know that because it was in the comics. And basically, the movies where he and Charles Xavier are like best pals, and in the movie, before becoming enemies later on in the franchise. So the movie is an origin story of where they came from, and it's basically all about them starting out as really good friends, becoming enemies later in the franchise, and they get recruits. Basically, that's the first thing that happens in the movie, is they start getting recruits. And Moira McTaggart, who's all in the movie, is basically like a love interest of Professor X in a way, I guess. So she helps out, but they also meet a young Beast who's basically the student who, when he shows up, he shows them what he can do by taking his shoes off and showing his big sort of, I guess, hand-like feet. That's what they look like. And throws himself onto this, I guess, I don't even know what it was. It was like a plane. I don't even know what it was. It was some kind of thing. And so he basically is Beast, and that's who he is. And so they start collecting mutants, and one of them is actually Havoc, who's played by Lucas Till. And Lucas Till Havoc is also known as Alexander. That's his human name, I guess. Who's actually the brother of Cyclops, Scott Summers' Cyclops. We don't really meet Cyclops until later, but he's the brother of him, and he's actually known as Havoc, as he can create like waves of projectiles with his body, whatever, which is pretty awesome, I have to admit. I have to say that the character is actually, they recruited him from prison because I guess he's like a juvenile delinquent or something. Whatever, you know. So that's how he comes into the story. Then there's another kid, a nerdy guy, I guess. He's in it as Banshee. I don't actually remember the name of the original character, but his name is actually Banshee, because he can create subatomic waves with his mouth, like he can scream and a window will shatter, or whatever like that. I don't even know. Something like that. There's actually a great scene from the movie where he's actually demonstrating his powers, and all the mutants that he recruited are now demonstrating their powers. And one of the recruits, Angel, this girl who can basically fly. She has like wings that can come out of the back of her body, and there's a scene where they're all coming up with names, and he Raven becomes Mystique, and she wants to become Mystique. And there's actually this other guy who actually dies before he becomes a part of the X-Men. He actually never becomes an X-Men. He's just kind of like a possible recruit. So he doesn't even become part of the X-Men. It's really, really short, like maybe 10 minutes of screen time. But it's this guy, he's basically an aquatic mutant. He can basically breathe underwater, and he demonstrates his power by going over to a fish tank and puts his whole head into it and actually has fins come out of his head. I can't actually remember his name, unfortunately, but he, like, all these characters are really awesome. You get the origin story of them. Not all of them make it into the original X-Men movie, but most of them do. And there's actually a character called Azazel who actually has the same power as Nightcrawler, except he's red, which is pretty awesome. But that being said, there's a lot about this movie that I liked. It was a really well done movie. I just felt long, but I definitely gave origin stories of where the characters came from in terms of what you expect from the X-Men. And it actually introduced a character called Sebastian Shaw, who's actually a villain of the movie, and he's basically a mentor or something like that to Magneto. And during the film, he actually wears the same helmet that Magneto wears in the comics, a little thing that protects him from Professor X's like mind or whatever, the thing that you know what I'm talking about. And Sebastian Shaw, he's actually played by Kevin Bacon, who, to tell you the truth, this is the first movie that I actually saw with Kevin Bacon in it. I hadn't actually known who Kevin Bacon wasn't, even though he's like a popular celebrity. But truthfully, I didn't even know who he was until this movie came out. So I'm like, oh, that's Kevin Bacon. I didn't even know who I was, and so he really got to know where these characters come from. Beast, while they're at the mansion, there's a scene where they're kind of running around. He keeps looking at Mystique, or Raven, through the window, and I guess he kind of develops a kind of crush on Raven, which is really cute. I have to say that's really just adorable. And he actually gives Raven his cure that can cure her ability to become blue, basically, but she doesn't know how to do it. So instead he does it himself. At first it goes well, like his hand, like feet, kind of go back into regular feet, but it goes wrong. Of course, every experiment goes wrong. And it basically gives him blue fur and all his entire body, which is what he looks like in the comics, which is the Beast. So Beast, you can basically feel like a beast, just like literally a beast. I mean, all the X-Men came out at the end, of course. Only a few actually remain on the team, but there's actually a great scene in the movie that I loved, and that was the most popular scene in the X-Men movies, especially First Class. And that's when they're trying to recruit Wolverine, the scene which has Hugh Jackman make a cameo appearance as Logan Wolverine, and that's his real name, Logan. And his new name is actually Wolverine, of course. And there's a really funny, hilarious scene, and actually it's the only time you actually hear the F-bomb used in the X-Men movies. And basically the scene starts with Charles Xavier and Eric Lantry coming into a bar, and Wolverine is smoking, and Magneto says, "Excuse me, I'm Eric Lantry, Charles Xavier." Or something like that. And it's like right after, because like the moment he's like, "Excuse me, I'm Eric Lantry," and Eric Charles Xavier's like, Charles Xavier. And this is the best line ever. He says, "Go fuck yourself." That's the best line ever, I gotta say. It really was funny. I mean, it was a great movie. I mean, there's just so much I liked about it. I felt it was just too long. I thought the character of Sebastian Shaw was kind of messed up and everything. There's actually a character in this movie that actually makes an appearance later in the franchise, in the first Wolverine movie. The actress is January Jones, which is a cool name. It's the name of the month. The first month of the year is January. And that's just awesome. And her name is January Jones. She plays Emma Frost, who makes an appearance briefly, in the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie, which is actually, I will be doing a review on that later. This whole movie was actually pretty cool. The suits they wore weren't really the best versions of the comic book suits as I researched in the comics. And these were actually yellow jumpsuits in the movie. And they were actually pretty cool, I gotta say. I mean, even Professor X wore them. I mean, come on. And the movie was actually just about how everyone got their power, sort of. It was just like, it was amazing. And there's even a scene where Charles Xavier is helping Eric Blanchard with his powers by having him move this big dish thing. I don't really know what it is. It's like this big dish thing. He does it, and it looks really cool. I mean, like he's like. I imagine lifting that with your Magneto. However, I think the character of Moira McTaggart is really interesting because you don't actually know who she is until later. But that being said, it was a really good movie. I thought it was really well done. It was really well done, and I just felt that it was going on forever. Unfortunately, it just felt like a really long movie. It does take place during the 60s, because there was a reference to JFK, I think? Pretty sure. But it was really, really interesting. It was very interesting. And at the end of the movie, there was a scene where we have Eric Blanchard in his full Magneto outfit, helmet and cloak, and he's shown with some of the mutants that decided to go with him, and he's basically recruiting Emma Frost, which actually doesn't happen with the rest of the movie franchise. But I thought it was really well done, and I thought it was really interesting in the origin story, because we don't really get that in a lot of the comic books movies, like how Professor X became Professor X, yeah, it's really cool because at the end of the movie where we have Professor X loses his legs because there's a tragedy thing near the end of the movie. Well, he doesn't lose his legs. You just can't feel them, which is why he needs to be in a wheelchair, which is really awesome because that's who Professor X is. He's been in a wheelchair and his legs are paralyzed. So at the end of the movie, you have him next to this building, which is now known as Xavier's Hope for Gifted Youngsters, in the rest of the movies, and he's sitting down in a chair and actually looks like Professor X with hair, which is actually really well done. So yeah. There's not much I can say, really. I did, however, think that Professor Shaw was truly violent. He had some powers, he was a mutant, and yeah, that's pretty crazy. The movie is technically a reboot of the X-Men franchise, but it's actually not really much a prequel. It's not really much of it's actually not. It's very much a prequel to the X-Men trilogy, in terms of origin story. But I love the addition of the Wolverine cameo. That was really well done. So, yeah, that's all I can really say. I think so. I thought it was good. Not as good as other X-Men movies, but it did have some good hints of the X-Men stuff. I can't think of any. I think the best one was the Wolverine cameo. That was very funny. Yeah, it was. And yeah, I liked how it played out and sets up for the X-Men trilogy. So, yeah, anything else? Oh, right. One more thing that I actually really thought was really cool that was actually Easter eggs, sort of. In later X movies, there was actually a machine called Cerebro, which is basically how Professor X basically found mutants. It's this big room that you went into. It's like a sciencey part of it's basically part of the sciencey part of the X-Men engine. And the Professor would go to the door, and a light thing would beam down at him and scan the Professor X's face, and it would say, "Welcome, Professor," and it would open up to this huge domish room thing. In the middle, and in the middle was this long path thing. And the Professor would go to this thing at the end of the path thingy, and would put on sort of helmet type thing. You'd be able to find mutants like that. But in this movie, it was actually an early prototype of Cerebro, and it wasn't even a domed room. It was just like kind of a sunroof or whatever. I don't even know what it was. It was an Easter egg in a way because it was showing you what Cerebro was, and that they were just testing it out. And actually, he designed it. The Professor designed it. I think these top two. But it was the first time that they were actually using it. And so I thought that was a really cool cameo / Easter egg kind of thing, like, oh my gosh, Cerebro! That's Cerebro! And, Cerebro is like the helmet, is like the, Cerebro, the helmet thingy. And since it's an early prototype, it's like, they built later, so, yeah. I thought that was a really cool thing that they added on an Easter egg, or whatever it was, Cerebro. I guess an Easter egg, sort of, so, yeah. That's all I can really say for X-Men, First Class. I rated a 7 out of 10 simply because it felt boring in terms of how long it was. It was decent, but it was just not a good enough movie that I'd actually want to see over and over again. So yeah, I think that's about does it. I did like January Jones' Emma Frost. That was a really sensual kind of character. So yeah, I think that'll do it for this episode. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more of these reviews. I am planning on doing more of these non-reviewed reviews. I plan for what I have plans for what I'll be reviewing for my after I do my X-Men reviews. So stay tuned for that. Alright, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya.